Greetings and salutations, everyone. Tonight I've got a exciting subscriber story coming from England. Dogman sightings in England. Also, I'm going to include 4 other Dogman encounters. I'd like to give a shout out to a friend and fellow narrator, Lance's Creepy Readings. Now, he does creepypastas and he's a very good storyteller, and for my subscribers who are into creepypastas, I'm going to leave the link in the description, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd go over and check out his channel and subscribe. He honestly deserves a lot more subscribers than he has. So, with that, let's get on with this show, and our first one is going to be the subscriber story, and then we'll hit the other 4 Dogman stories throughout the United States. Hey Jeff, this is my encounter. When I was 7 years old in Devon, England, there were 3 of us. 3 girls, all about the same age. It's a short but frightening encounter. We used to wander the countryside for miles. It was safe back then to let your kids run free. We lived in a village called Studley. It was not a very big village compared to others in Devon. We'd been walking through the woods looking for hedgehog homes and fox. It was a very lovely warm day. We pretty much could go anywhere, no boundaries. This is the England I remember. We started to pick the little wild strawberries that grow in the same area every year. They grew profusely at the bottom of a lane that was shrouded in trees, lots of moss, and it was always a bit dark up that lane. A lane is a road, this one was a dirt road, and it always, all year, had this negative feel to it. We never went up it because of that, maybe only about 10 or 15 feet up to get to the strawberries. This particular day, one of the oldest of the 3 girls said to us, "I dare you to go up it." We said, "No, you do it." She would not, but started to say we were babies, so for that, as she would not go up herself. Anyway, it was getting into late afternoon. The sun was starting to go down, but still a lot of light, and it started to get a bit cold. We had eaten all the wild ripe strawberries we could find. Now it was time to head home. It was really feeling creepy and strange. I felt like we were not alone. The other 2 girls felt it also. We talked in hushed voices because there was some rustling in the woods to the left of us, but we couldn't see anything. Then we heard a fox scream, which made the hair on my neck stand up. That always freaks me out. I never got used to that scream. Time to go home, we decided, while walking really close to each other. Each one of us wanting to be the one in the middle. Home was about 400 meters down the road for me and a bit further for them. Walking down the road towards home, to the right was a house and woods. To the left was woods and fields. Coming from the wood line with hedges that were about 8 feet tall. For no obvious reason, we felt like we were being followed. But looking around, we couldn't see anything or hear anything. But we all had the sense of urgency to get out of there. Then I heard a thud sound. I said, "Listen, there's something on the other side of that hedge." Looking up at the top of the hedge, to our horror, was this huge creature. It was 10 feet tall at least, looking over the very thick hedge, peering down at us with its long snout and dark shaggy fur, making a low growl that seemed to consume the air around us. We screamed all at the same time. When I say scream, it was like a long, continuous scream as we began to run towards my house. This thing kept up with us with no effort. It looked like it was taking long strides on the other side of the hedge. Even though we couldn't see its legs, we could see its shoulders and arms movement. And it was not looking like it was running. The growling got louder as we ran, trying to grab into each other so as not to be the one left behind for this thing that wanted to get us. The feeling of fear and terror filled every cell in my body. It consumed me to my very soul. We ran to my house, which was on the other side of the road, trying to get into the house, but the door was locked. Still screaming, my mother came to the door and said, "What is the matter with you all?" We said there was a giant thing in the field and it chased us. She said, "Don't be silly. You have got to be all upset over something you imagined." "No, it's true," we said. "Can you take the girls home?" We all pled with her. But she said, "You only live a little further down the road. You can walk," which they did most reluctantly. When we saw each other a few days later, I asked them, did they tell their parents? They had, and the response was, "It's your imagination." Well, it wasn't. It was true. I remember it like it happened today. It was psychologically very disturbing. It didn't make sense, and I couldn't put a name to it. I did not know what it was. All I knew was this was a huge, hairy creature that walked slightly odd and had the meanest, most frightening growl you could imagine. For years I had nightmares of wolves, even though I didn't see this creature as a wolf. Somewhere in my mind it must have connected that this was a wolf-like or very dangerous. I know it's a short encounter, but it has stuck with me for more than 50 years. I don't like to be out when it's getting dusk and have a fear that I might see it again. But after all of these years, I can finally put a name to the creature I saw. Wow, what a great subscriber story. That is intense. I cannot imagine being a child and seeing such a creature, just the fear that must have stuck with you. Thank you for sharing that with us, and I really hope that just hearing the story helps. Our next encounter brings us to Ada County, Idaho, February 2008, roughly 3 a.m. in the morning. I saw a Dogman walking along the Greenbelt in Boise, Idaho. And, to be more specific, the area would be a garden city. The actual location on the Greenbelt would be the area of the Greenbelt that is just on the other side of Veterans Parkway Bridge. For those not familiar with the area, the Boise River flows through downtown Boise and Garden City. The Greenbelt is a biking pathway that is paved and goes right next to the river. It was about 3 a.m. in February 2008, and I was scraping the ice off my car window. I had to be at work around 4 a.m. I realized that it had gotten eerily quiet. I looked up and I saw it walking along the Greenbelt going towards the Veterans Parkway Bridge. The bridge goes over the Boise River, and the Greenbelt pathway goes under the bridge. It was tall, I would guess over 7 feet. It turned its head and looked at me. It had a green neon-colored glowing eyes. I said out loud, "Oh God!" It turned its head back and continued walking along the Greenbelt. It was walking slowly. I was frozen with fear and didn't move until I saw it vanish behind a building that was next to Veterans Parkway Bridge. I assumed that it continued along the Greenbelt under the bridge. It had dark brown fur all over its body, pointed ears, a long snout, weird legs, a tail. I got a pretty good look at it. The section of the Greenbelt is at the end of a dead-end street and has a couple of businesses there with a parking lot. It's all lit up with streetlights. I only saw it that one time. Our next encounter brings us to Osage County, Kansas. The summer of 2016. It was dusk. I was driving home from doing shopping in a nearby town and was all alone, just driving and listening to the radio. It was just before sunset on a beautiful summer day. I was admiring the sky because it was such a bright orange. While driving through some S-curves in the road, I made the first turn and saw some deer dart across the road. Immediately, I hit the brakes to slow down, not knowing if there were more to come out of the woods. On the opposite side of the road, it drops down a steep embankment to farm field. I had slowed the car down and scanned the tree line for more deer. That's when this thing jumped out of the woods, running after the deer. He landed in the middle of the road and cleared the rest of the road in his next stride. It was so hard to comprehend what I saw, but it sounds like the descriptions that people have claimed on here. It was a gray figure with a short, sleek coat. I didn't see a tail on this creature. It was on all fours and was the same height as the deer. His head was very odd. It looked like a dog head with cropped, pointed ears, but had a very short muzzle. He briefly turned his head towards me when he crossed, and his eyes, I wouldn't say they glowed, but they weren't normal animal eyes. They were like a dull yellow, and they definitely stood out. His body was really what confused me, because the way it moved was like a human would move when trying to run on all fours. Its gait looked lazy, like he was just kind of lopping across the road. It was very muscular on the front end, but had a very thin, almost sickly-looking abdomen area and hind legs. Once he was across the road, I lost sight of him over the embankment. I was so confused at what I saw that I didn't tell anyone right away for fear that they would think I was crazy. I've been searching for answers since then, but came up with nothing. I eventually told my husband and one close friend, but neither of them had ever heard of anything that matched the description. I'm still not 100% sure what I saw was a Dogman, but it's the only thing that I've came across that sounds reasonably close to what I saw. Our next encounter brings us to Floyd County, Indiana, April 2015, around 5 in the afternoon. I'd never heard of a Dogman, but I saw one in town run past the floodgates down by the river on my way to a recently opened park that was closed due to floodwaters. It didn't look like a scary werewolf, but more like a weird dog running on 3 legs. Its tail was curled up. I went on a quest to find out what it was because I have never hallucinated and I knew what I had seen. The ones most people are reporting are not exactly like what I saw. However, had it stopped and looked at me, I'm sure I would have found him quite a bit more frightening. Our final encounter of this evening brings us to Carbon County, Montana. Late summer of 2004. I'm probably the youngest person to come to you about this, but I'm 16. I grew up here in Montana, and I'm very active in the outdoors. When I was 4 or 5, I lived with my parents in a small town next to the highway. Our house was right next to it, and my room faced a gravel road that went into the highway. It was summer, and we didn't have an AC, so I would leave my window open at night so I could try to stay cool. One night I woke up and noticed a silhouette standing outside of my window. My eyes focused, and I saw that it had a furry outline and these frost blue eyes it was using to look at me. I sat up in my bed, frightened, but I didn't feel the need to yell for my parents or anything. It just kind of stared at me. Well, looking at it, I saw that it had pointed ears with tufts of fur like a lynx has, and the muzzle like a German shepherd. It was fairly muscular and was almost resting on my windowsill like it was leaning up against it. We stared at each other for a good couple of minutes, then it smiled at me like a dog does, and even tilted its head. It then backed away from my window, walking across my yard to our chain-link fence. It literally stepped over it. I got out of bed to watch this thing as it got down on all fours and ran down the road across the highway. Listening, I heard it yip and bark while on the other side, which is prairie but then a forest. It was almost like it was calling to the others. Looking back on this, I feel like maybe it felt like I didn't pose a threat. Maybe it was just curious. Back then, I was just a kid. Now I'm a lot bigger. I'm 6'7", and weigh almost 200 pounds. So I'm thinking if I saw one of these things again, I probably wouldn't get the same reaction. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed these Dogman encounters, and let's remember that the first one from the English countryside across the pond was from a fellow subscriber. And for all of those subscribers out there who enjoy listening to a creepypasta, remember, the link will be in the description. It's Lance's Creepy Readings. Now, a creepypasta, for all those that don't know what a creepypasta is, it's a ghost story, kind of a story you tell around the campfire. It's not a Dogman encounter. It's written by an author, and, you know, it just comes from the word creepy, meaning, you know, creepy, and pasta, like post-it. Just, the link will be in the description, and you know, you guys will be doing me a favor by going and checking out his channel. He's a good guy, and he honestly deserves the subscribers and the support. So let's help him out, guys, alright? Alright, tomorrow night I've got an exciting Dogman encounter from another subscriber coming from North Carolina. And let me tell you something. This is gotta be one of the most exciting, dangerously encounters I have ever heard. I don't know if I don't know what to put on this one. This is just insane. And I hope you guys come back tomorrow and listen. Thanks for always being here, guys. It means a lot to me.